Imperial Commander by Tabletop Games, originally published in 1981, are available today under the Tabletop Games Classics heading. You can get your copy at alternativearmies.com. Imperial Commander is the sequel, if you will, to Laserburn. Is it a sequel? Is it a supplement? Is it a whole new game? We're going to talk about that here shortly. This is not a commercial, by the way. We've seen a number of games of Laserburn here on the table. Laserburn, of course, those of you who are longtime fans will recall that this is a game for 3 to 12 figures, depending on how you want to set it up, depending on how much time you got, and how aggressive you want to be about pushing the game to its limits. Every time I do a video on Laserburn, people say, oh, you should do Imperial Commander. Well, here you go, everybody. Imperial Commander. This expands the scope of the game to squad based. You've got, I don't know, anywhere from 3 to 7 squads on the table, squads of 3 to 8. So now we're talking about up to 50 figures each. And this is where you really start to see the beginnings of what old Richard Hallowell and Brian Ansell would later turn into a little game you might have heard of about war in the 400th millennium, or 400th century. I think that's what it is. You know what I'm talking about. They ran a little company, a little workshop all about games. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, this may not be the channel for you. The art is still by our old friend Tony Yates, right? Remember him with the, wow, those guys look familiar, don't they? Don't they look like one of the factions in the 40K? Don't these guys got the whole, look at that, skulls? Yeah. Oh, it's all the way back in 81, brother. And then even, look, there's one of them eagles. You know what I'm talking about. And then I'll show you over here the artwork. Just while we're talking about artwork, look at the jaw on this guy. What a Chad. And of course, it was 1981, so we get a little hot babe with maybe even a little bit of a nip slip. That's not for the kids. Hey, it was the 1980s. What are you going to do? Interesting game. Starts off with the points values. Hey, if you want to buy your points, here's what you do. Your breakdown of troops are going to be basically veterans. Well, let's go from worst to best, okay? Raw troops, conscripts, regular, elite, veteran, and guard. So, hey, look, they already have guardsmen. How cool is that? We're starting to see some familiar weapons in here. Things like the hand flamer, the laser pistol. They haven't quite settled on the artwork. So our laser pistol, our bolt rifle looks like this, right? It's probably a bolt action rifle instead of what we think of today. But the missile launcher, I mean, that looks pretty close to what we saw in Necromunda, doesn't it? Heavy bolter, support bolter, machine pistol. Things are broken down into lasers, bolts, machines, plasma gun. We still got that going. And then the usual. This is where bikes really start to show up. And then if you take a look in the back, they give you a couple of cheat sheets. We'll look at those here in a little bit. Back here in the back, they give you some suggested force lists with point values to try to balance things out. And we start with the Imperial Assault Group. Regular combat squad is only going to be about 66 points. These are regular infantry, right? 4 men with bolt rifles and 1 with a heavy bolter. So you're going to want to buy 4 to 8 of those, and then 1 to 2 command squads, scouts. Whereas your Imperial Armor Platoon, you're going to have 5 elite jump pack mount guys. You only need 1 to 2 of those command squads. And interestingly, right, the typography is very 80s style. Look at this. Back, remember, in 1981, this was in magnetic tape. Machines could read this if it was written with a particular kind of ink. It looked very fancy. This was, man, that was the height of technology. It looks a little, when you look back on it these days, it looks a little antiquated, but that was the style of the time. Anyway, so you do have this Dreadnought Armor Force, which we flipped. We had combat, command, and then here we have command and combat. So they're still learning about how to present information, which I think is interesting. You can see the evolution and the growth of these guys as game designers when you step through Laserburn. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about Laserburn, but I do think this particular title is organized a little bit more sensibly. And there's some interesting things going on here. I see a lot of people talk about this game, but they don't really do the deep dive. That's what we're doing here today. We're going to go through the rules. It's going to be a little bit of a flip through, but I think it'll be interesting. So we do have, and we'll kind of tie this into the future, the current tense of gaming. Sorry, I know I'm a little all over the place, right? So we're gonna look at the rules. We're gonna talk about the evolution. We're gonna talk about how this kind of gave birth to modern the tabletop wargaming, and of course we're gonna tie everything together as we do. We like making connections. We notice things here at the House of Wargaming. So what do we got? We got the Redemptionist Raiding Party and a late dynastic Redemptionist force. These are the guys. Call out an early Redemptionist. See now, oh boy, we're doing BattleTech hours here, aren't we, guys? Early, mid, late. From the period of the inception of the Holy War, when the desert races of the planet Emor attacked the Imperium. So we've dropped the whole Muslim angle. They're just desert rats, right? Okay, file those serial numbers off. We'll annoy a lot fewer people that way. So we have a raiding party with a warrior lord, and the warrior lords are pretty good. We've got some extras, lords, household troops. And the same thing is true for the kind of imperial forces, where we've got a feudal outworld army with a lord knight. We've got a bunch of conscripts, mercenaries, jet copters. There are rules for vehicles in here. I'm going to give them short shrift because I really want to get into the game itself. And the game is kind of interesting. A lot of interesting choices. So now that you understand we're talking about different forces, then let's take a look at the turn order. Okay? And I think, and it even says here on the first page, when you start the rules, use small forces. So we'll probably do maybe we do 1 or 2 power armor squads versus 3 or 4. But now you're talking about real maneuver stuff. And when you're playing laser burn, that's really ideal for a scenario. Look, these 6 guys, almost role-playing game. These 6 guys got to get into the building, do their stuff, and get out. They have to assault that building. They have to try to kill this guy before they lose half their force. Very simple, very easy. We've seen those games. That's really all you have time for. With a game like this, you can be it's a little bit more flexibility. You're going to be moving guys in clumps. Okay? Let's talk about turn order. It's really loose. And I like the presentation of these rules, because now we go, okay, look, here's how you set up your force, right? This is the point cost, get your guys together. Now here's our turn order. And what follows is in the same general order. You have a movement phase. So it is going to be kind of I go, you go, but there's a lot of intermixing in there too. If it's my turn, then I get to move my guys. So we have movement. Then everybody fires. So look, we have firing here. And firing takes a little while. There's, it's chart heavy. Again, 1980s. You've got to have your charts. Okay, so firing includes such things as grenades, off-table fire support, ammunition, breakdown, cover, and we'll go over these in a little more detail, force shields. Then there's a second movement phase. So again, it's I move, everybody that can shoot shoots, me and you. Then I have a second movement phase, and then we move into the close combat phase. But wait, there's more. Anytime I have a figure move into close combat with another figure, we fight a close combat. The difference between that and the close combat phase is that in the close combat phase, instead of it being 1v1, we have a squad v squad. Whenever a member of the squad is within 5 centimeters of an enemy in the close combat phase, so we haven't touched, we just brought our guys. Let me grab a couple of figures up here. So we're moving our squads. Yeah, I still have these guys. Don't forgive me. Right. So here's our tourists, and let me grab some operators here. So we have another squad, and they have to stay within 8 centimeters of each other. So my elite army rangers here are moving across the table, and they get to within 5 centimeters. And maybe these 2 guys get together and they have a little dance. They have a little bit of fun, okay? And oh, look, we lost one of our guys. Well, now I've done my moving. This was the second move. Because I've got a guy within 5 centimeters, we'll make it a little clearer here. These 2 guys are 5 centimeters. Everybody else is too far away. Each of these guys rolls a d6. And on a 5 or 6, they can move 5 centimeters. I can move 5 centimeters and attack. Okay, so we'll deal with these guys. This old boy is going to roll a d6. If he rolls a 5 or a 6, he can shoot with a pistol. Well, it's actually a close combat weapon. So it could be a pistol, could be an auto laser, SMG, assault rifle, flame weapons, or a bike cannon. Ooh, baby. So there's your list. So I roll a 5 or 6, I shoot and I miss. I roll a 5 or a 6. Oh, I got it again. I shoot and I hit him. Okay. And then this guy's within 5 centimeters. I roll a 4, nothing happens. So we're done, right? And these 2 guys are still locked in combat because we can talk about close combat at this point, but it's really fairly simple. And again, kind of bloodthirsty art here. Look at old Tony, man. He is not wasting any. He is not saving that red ink in case it goes out of style. So it's pretty simple. Throw a D10 for each of your figures and then add in these factors, okay? And compare the two scores. If the attacker's score is lower or equal, then his figure is killed. If the attacker's score is higher, the defender is killed. Oh, so you're never going to wind up with two guys locked in combat at the start of the close combat phase. So this close combat phase, probably better term close assault phase, because this is where I'm close enough. Now I'm going to leap in to attack you. And that's only the active player at that point, okay? So a couple of, it's typical modifiers. Heroes have a +3 on that die. Conscripts are going to be at -1. That's why they cost -2 points. Power armored, heavy infantry, they're going to be doing. If you're not carrying a melee weapon, it costs like 1 point. Why wouldn't you buy a melee weapon? You're going to be fine, right? There are a couple of other special rules. If you move into hand-to-hand combat during the movement phase, which while rare, I don't know, I would do it, particularly because the attacker's figure, if successful, may move no further. If you move into hand-to-hand combat, it's permitted. The attacker's figure may move no further. So once you get into hand-to-hand combat, you're done. If it's your turn, you're always the attacker. And so that's interesting, right? That's an interesting little wrinkle that kind of changes things. If you're the active player, you're the attacker every single time. In cases of extreme stress, wait a minute. Let's double check this real quick. This could be important. Whenever any member of a squad is within 5 centimeters, the whole squad is at close quarters. Each player turn. Yeah, I think this is for everybody. So how do you figure out whose turn it is? This has to be the active player, right? Hey, we're going to play a game of this and we'll answer all these questions a little bit later. And then you have another kind of not quite part of the turn sequence, but a thing that happens all the time. You do have morale tests. You actually have what we today call a morale clock. I don't know if they use that phrase at the time. They don't use it in this game. Basically, you have 1 point for each weak guy, 2 points for power, unarmored guy, basically. 2 points for power armor, 3 points for dreadnoughts, and that's what they call the big heavy armor guys. Small walkers, that kind of thing. And then for each vehicle, you're going to wind up with 5 points. And again, 5 points for each hero and leader, which you should have those, right? And then every time you lose a guy, you just subtract whatever those point values are. When you hit 50%, then you have to make a morale check. Morale check is pretty easy. And then again, it's any army that's broken, its opponent morale has a boost. Morale check is pretty easy. It's 2d6, and on a 7 or more, you're broken. Okay, all the troops have to retreat. Now, the game's not over. You just have to retreat at full rate in at least 1 move phase per player turn. Now, remember, you have 2 movement phases. So I can fall back and then shoot and then hold my position, right? During at least 1 move phase. Or I'm not going to move now. I'm going to open fire, and then I'll fall back. Right? Put a little more space between. It's just one of those two. You got to move away from the enemy. And then, let's see. I think that's really about it for that. At the beginning of each war game, work out your mark. Is there any way to recover it? So if in an army, some figures are deemed to be leaders. Leaders are represented by a figure. And the moment an army breaks, the leader may rally troops around them. For every leader figure, throw a d6. That's the number of troops, meaning figures, he has rallied it and will stay with him. So I think the moment it breaks, so therefore you have a few guys that will stick around. That's pretty good. Within an Imperial unit, the leader will be in control of 3 units, each with 5 men. So there you go. It's a d6, right? If you have all 15 men run off, the best you're going to be able to do is rally 6 of them, okay? Now, if your army, so that means that little cadre can stay and fight. And if they do enough damage to trigger a morale check on the other army's side, then they follow that same thing. But the other army, the second guy to break, they only fail on a 9 or better. Okay? It's up to the leaders and the troops to have managed to rally. But of course, I think this is the kind of game that eventually you get to a point where you go, we realize this game is over. Your guys are falling back. I don't want to suffer any more casualties. We've been here long enough. It's time to go get a couple of brews. Let's hit the pub, right? Okay, so that's the game in a nutshell. Interesting. Not quite I Go You Go. It's built on a foundation of I Go You Go, but there's a lot of little things happening in each player's turn. Now it's your turn. You make a move. We all fire anybody that's eligible. Then you make a second move. And then we do your close assault phase. I'm probably going to call it close assault just to make it so it's not quite so confusing, the difference between close combat and close assault. So that's the general overview with a little bit of a side trek into how you do melee. Let's talk about movement, because we're still figuring this out. So movement is going to be between, generally speaking, light infantry are going to be moving 10 centimeters, power armor, and dreadnought. This would be armored infantry and power armored. The power armored are also called dreadnoughts. Although the dreadnoughts is something different, right? So it gets slower. Vehicles are moving 20 to 25. Remember, that's per phase. That means that a anti-grav or hover vehicle will be moving 50 centimeters per active turn. I am not, one of those people that subscribes to that. So let's take a look here real quick. So 50, well, this is 30 right here. So it would be twice of this. You can move this, and then you can move another one of these, which puts that grav tank almost all the way across my table, at least from north to south. So pretty quick, right? But there are a couple of little wrinkles, because you do have the ability to teleport in and out, a la if you were trekking among the stars. But there's like a station somewhere off table. So what happens is all the same rules apply, even though that's off table. So let's pretend the back of my hand is that teleport station, and we've got a table over here. Off table, my little space terrorists here in the desert armor. Let me grab them. There's 1, 2, and Mr. 3. I guess they're wearing space balaclavas. So they have to move onto the station in the first movement phase. Then we do all the shooting, and then they go pwong, and they teleport onto the table in the second movement phase. Alternatively, so that you'd have to establish that at the start of the game. Alternatively, I could say, well, these guys are going to start there. And so on the first movement phase, they can teleport in, but I can't teleport a second group, because in the second movement phase, while these guys are running around trying to catch some bullets, this group is moving onto the stage. So on the second turn, now during that first movement phase, I can teleport a second unit in. You see? See how that works? Kind of clever. It means you can only bring one unit on per turn. And even though you've got this off-table situation, which may even be more important when it comes to teleporting off-table, because you can get off the table using the same process. If these guys are on table and they teleport out, then nobody else can teleport out until one movement phase has allowed them to clear the pad. Flying vehicles don't even have, and the hover vehicles do, but flying vehicles don't even have a speed, because all they can do is one thing per turn. And I got to zoom out so you can see it's further up here a little ways. There we go. It can take off. That's it. It can fly high enough. Okay. Then on the next turn, it can go anywhere it wants. Oh, this is movement phase, right? So in the first phase, it can hover. Second phase, it can go anywhere it wants, but it's still hovering, so everybody gets to shoot at it. And then on the next turn, my next active turn, so you get to do all your stuff. Then on my next active turn, it can land on that first movement phase, and that's important, because if it's transporting troops, they can only do one thing: get off. Now, if I have moved my guy up, now my hand represents a ground vehicle, okay? So he moved up in the second half of my last turn. Then you did all your stuff. Now, these guys, they basically have two actions. They can come out of the APC. That's their first movement. They got to stop within 1 centimeter of it. Everybody fires. And then my APC can move, and these guys can move. Right? So it's kind of an action economy going on there. And likewise, there's a couple of other things they can do. Move into the bay boom. And then we also have the jump packs. Very, very interesting way. They basically have presented you a system for determining how far and high these guys can jump. However far you move, you can clear that high. So if I'm trying to jump over a building that's 10 centimeters high, let's call it 8 centimeters high, just to give ourselves a little insurance here, I better be 20 centimeters. Well, that's 20 centimeters across. It's basically moving up at an angle. So I better be, if I'm trying to get over it, I better be 10 centimeters away. Because if I'm within 4 centimeters and I try to jump over it, I'm going to smash into that wall and suffer falling damage, which is covered in here a little bit. And then likewise, so it's at the quarter, half, 3/4 mark. That's where you figure out. And at the quarter mark, I guess, yeah, he's jumping this way. At the quarter mark, so in the case of this example here, we're jumping 20 centimeters. So what I can do is I can say, okay, after 5 centimeters of horizontal distance, I'm 5 centimeters above the table. So we can put a ruler down and go, well, geez, that tree is 8 centimeters tall. You're not going to clear it. But pre-measuring is allowed. So that's really just more a case of, I would really like to do this, but that tree is too high. So on this move, I'm going to have to step back a little bit. And then on my second movement phase, I'll take that action to trigger my jump pack. So fairly simple. It looks a lot more complicated than it really is. All right, now we get to firing. Everybody can only fire on their front firing arc. We do have little templates for firing arcs. Now, generally speaking, a guy on foot is going to be able to fire like that. A guy on a motorcycle is going to be able to fire something like this. This is also the template used for squad support weapons. So if I have a light LMG or a laser machine gun. Firing is very simple. It is a roll 2d6, but then interesting things happen. Let's take a look here at the lasers. If I have a laser pistol, I've got an ammunition check. Again, you guys that played Necromunda back in the early 90s will recognize this. I'm rolling 2d6. If I roll a 2 or less, I've run out of ammunition or my gun has jammed. I don't care which one it is. The game effects are the same. We have, remember, laser burn. Here he comes, rearing his ugly head. Bunch of ugly heads on that one. In laser burn, you have a -1, 2, or 3 for every centimeter you fire. In this game, we now have our friendly neighborhood range bands. Don't we all feel warm and cozy now? Our laser pistol has a maximum range of 30 centimeters. Well, that's convenient. My ruler is 30 centimeters long. That's really, boy, I wonder if well, it's almost, it's 35. Near enough. Close enough for government work, as they say. However, you have this interesting thing where, you've got the 3 range bands, right? And what do you think is going to happen with those range bands? You also have impact type. Obviously, you have bonuses and penalties based on how far out you are. I'm not quite sure. Oh, these numbers here, by the way, I skipped the most important part. Forgive me. It's not penalties. This is the number you need to roll to hit. A pistol at close range, I'm rolling 2d6. I need a 5. At medium range, I need a 6. Anything beyond that, I need there's no number given. I guess that means, right, got it, right? You got to look at the numbers. We got to do a little bit of intuitiveness here. This is from 10 to 50 for all weapons, but the pistol can only fire to 30. 50, for those of you who have your abacus out at home, 50 is more than 30. So the range band, so the maximum range stops in this range band. So you're either getting 5s or 6s. And if you're trying to shoot beyond 30, you are out of luck. Taking a look at some of these other ones, let's take what's a long one here? Who's got so a heavy bolter has a range of 100 centimeters. Now it jams on a 3, so I roll my 2d6. It only hits on a 7, and then out to 50, it hits on a 9, and out to 100, I need to roll 11s. But it does have high power. We'll talk about that. And it can fire 2 shots at the same target. Flamers have the template. So here we have hand flamer and flamethrower. I think that's a little different from laser burn. If I recall correctly, laser burn just had flamers. Now we've got the big ones and the small ones. So the hand flamer fires template 2. That's this little guy. And the flamer fires template 1. Wait. The flamethrower fires template 1. I think this is backwards. I think this is the hand flamer, and this is the genuine flamer. The template 3 is used for something like the plasma gun. Blam. All right, then we have some other things like the bite cannons. Bite cannons have a maximum range of just 10. Oh, they're going to get right up in your face. They will fire template 2, which we've already seen. It's that narrow one. I may need to cut those out. And then we have the laser cannon has probably the highest range, 500. And man, is it accurate. This is interesting. It's more accurate at medium range than close range. That makes sense. It's going to take a lot longer to track that thing around. It's not made for fighting up close. If you're that close to the guy, you can kind of get around it a little easier. So that makes sense. Fire, and then that's high impact. So what do I mean by impact? Well, this is where the kind of armor and the kind of classification comes into play, because we have these charts. Now, first of all, I should point out, if you are firing with raw guys, you get a +2. Guards are at -3. What does that mean? Well, that's a good question. I think that means you're... Well, let's see. If the target is in hardcover, you get a +1. That makes it harder. So I think that value gets added or subtracted to the toughness number here. Yeah, it's a little bit wonky. Let's take a look at this. So when you fire, you roll 2d6. Okay, check that first column like we talked about. If the score is higher than that breakdown number, measure the range, read across. This gives the hit number. See if any of the factors apply. If they do, add or subtract the number shown to what? You have to add or subtract to the number shown to hit, not to the dice roll, right? Because then if your total score is equal to or greater than the hit number, then you hit. So you're trying to roll equal to or greater than this. And if I'm firing at, if I've got a conscript, then I add to this number. Instead of an 8, it becomes a 9 that I need to hit. All right, so we figured it out. We're pretty clever, right? This I like this. This is a form of gatekeeping. This is a way to keep the unserious people out. And it may be part of the reason that a lot of people don't play this game, because if they have to stop and think for a little while, then, oh my gosh. Now, they do have auto rangers, which are like scopes. And there's other options in the game that I'm kind of glide over and just like not mention for right now, because we still got to get through this. So where are we at? Well, we've hit. We rolled the hit. We have a standard weapon. Okay, we hit your guy. I shot your guy with a standard weapon. So here he is. He is a lightly armored guy, and you just pew-pewed him right in the brisket. Well, if he's lightly armored and you hit me with a standard, then I'm going to kill him on a 2 to 6. So it's kind of a wound roll, right? If I fire that same firearm at a dreadnought, I'm only killing him on a 6. Now, you could probably do the same thing with modifiers, but some of these things, you have near miss, you have stuns, you have misses, and these have very different effects. The near miss, the target may not fire or move until after the next fire phase. May not fire or move until after the next. So if it's my fire phase, and then we have to get through yours, so it's kind of a way. It's the word we use now is either pinning or suppressed. A near miss, your guy is going to duck back, and he's going to be stunned for a little while. Obviously, if I miss, there's no effect. So even though I hit you, there's some cases in here where no effect. That's what miss really means, is no effect, right? If I shoot you with a low-powered weapon, then the best I can hope for if you're a dreadnought is a near miss. Now, near miss isn't nothing. That might be something after all. Just keeping your head down so that you can't move or fire until after the next fire phase. If I hit you in my fire phase and you can't fire in your fire phase, then I can send the rest of my guys out to fulfill their mission objectives. So there's value in that. And then of course, stun. Some of the weapons have stun as damage. Some of the grenades are stun grenades, and they're a lot more likely to stun unarmored guys than they are guys in great big honking armor. The power armor that you see in the artwork here has auto dimmers. You've got headphones on that are blasting a little bit of the Carpenters, so the flashbangs aren't going to do as much to stun you as they otherwise might. Hand grenades, I think, have some impressive blast templates. If you take a look at this, the explosive grenades have a blast template of 2. Let's grab our little handy dandy measuring device and take a look. It's got a diameter of 9 inches. So just your standard impact grenade with a blast template of 3. Man, Katie, bar the door. That's enormous. I wonder if these haven't been like fooled around with or like blown up a little bit. Oh, the grenade templates were blown up. Yeah, there you can write your own jokes there, right? And then we get into the really detailed stuff, the little more like RPG. Like, what about demolitions on light doors versus reinforced bunkers? What about armor penetration? If you're shooting a standard impact vehicle, if you hit a vehicle, use this chart to find the score that you need to penetrate the armor. Roll the dice, right? So the more power you've got, if I'm shooting you with a bolt gun, I'm going to be using this. And let's see, find the score you have to throw. I only need a 4 to penetrate, whereas my low-powered rifle or laser gun is going to need a 5. Okay, air assault vehicles. Assault vehicles are heavily armored, so you're not going to have any effect with anything less than power or high power guns, right? Then we get into some stuff. There's some things like, so the weapon rule and follow-on fire. So snipers and the squad support weapons have this funky thing where if I'm shooting at A and I hit him, I can move my fire over and I can fire at B. And I can move it again and fire at C. But there's a limit to that range. So if I'm doing really well, I could walk my fire, bing, bang, boom, boom, boom. I can pinball through all of your guys if I'm doing well and I keep hitting. So it replicates both sniper fires, where these guys are like, I don't know where the shooting is coming from. It's also for heavy machine guns that are kind of laying down a large burst that will affect a large area. It's kind of interesting. We do have rules for off-table support. You can buy effectively radios, so your scouts can call down fire support. Pretty powerful stuff. On a 5 or a 6, you just drop one of these templates. Kablam. I didn't see any rules. They may be in here. Maybe in my next video I'll correct and apologize and just feel absolutely terrible. I'll just feel awful for leading you astray. But so without that, man, there's a 1/3 chance you are dropping some crazy explosives down on the heads of your enemies. I'll have to check to see what the cost of those are. That may be the balancing factor. They may be pretty expensive. I'm not going to do that right now. Instead, I want to talk about the ammunition breakdowns because this is, again, rather interesting. As you're firing your weapons, you're throwing 2s and 3s. Guys are going to run out of ammo. Okay, how do we repair that? Well, can't be fired until you fix it. So if you spend an entire movement phase stationary, so my guy, remember, they have to stay within 8 centimeters of each other. So if the rookie's gun jams, then these guys are going to have to either get out of contact with him, or they're going to have to wait until he clears his jam, or he's just doing, close combat, for example. But how do you fix it? Well, for every movement phase that you don't move on your movement phase, roll a d6. On a 5 or a 6, the weapon is working again. So that's, we keep coming across that, don't we? Generally, 5 or 6 moves you into close combat. 5 or 6 clears a gun jam. 5 or 6 lets you walk your fire across the squad. 5 or 6 lets you call it. 5s and 6, very easy. It's not as complicated as people make it out to be. People say, oh, this is really clunky. And maybe it is a little bit clunky because of these different charts. But I think these are really interesting because, there's like 3 axes here. How much power do I have behind my gun? How much armor are you wearing? And then a little bit of fate involved. Can I find the chink in the armor? I'm rolling a d6. It's really not that bad, particularly when they're all right here. Ranges, everything you need is right here. You just need, so here they are. Where are they? Well, there they are. There's your impact charts right there. So all you need is a little written description. Your character sheet, if you will, your army list, not that bad. Again, we get into cover. All right, life sensors will help you find sneaky troops. What it looks like, the difference between concealed, we know all that. They're trying to kind of feel their way out. They're figuring this out. Woods are a special case, right? This is where you got a case where somebody may be deep in the woods, which is different from if they're on the edge of the woods. But that's also different if you're really far away from the woods. So there's an interesting little, what happens if I'm really far from the woods firing at somebody on the edge versus somebody too deep in? And we found ways to streamline this. But given the fact that these guys don't have our 44 years of experience, this is good. This is a good attempt, man. This does everything you need to do. It simulates the actual effect of being at a distance or a remove. And nowadays we're just like, oh, well, if you're within an inch of the thing, then you can be seen. If you're further than an inch, you can't. Right? Easy peasy. We've figured it out. This is not bad. Just maybe a little slower. You may need to think about it a little more. But I like thinking about things. We've already talked about all that in Morale Tech. Then heroes have special abilities. You roll a D100. And for example, on a 1 through 5, you can repair weapons on a throw of 2 to 6. My hero is really good at clearing his gun jams. He's aggressive. He may throw for close combat actions within 10 centimeters of him. He really likes to get stuck in. Nerves of Steel may ignore near miss results. These heroes, of course, cost a little bit of extra point, but they're interesting. And that's it, man. We're done. That's all there is to it. So the next thing there is to it is we're going to have to build some forces, and we're going to have to throw them at each other on the table and see how the game actually plays. Because I didn't tell you how the game plays. We just did a real quick and dirty leaf through of the rules. Quick and dirty, he said. 30 minutes. If you and I were at a convention, I could go through the core mechanics in 5-10 minutes tops. And then we get into the nitty-gritty later on of how everything works, right? I just need to tell you, here's how you move, here's how you shoot, here's how you fight. Here's when the morale check happens, and that's later in the game. Just remember when half your guys, give or take, depending on what kind of guys you have, then you're going to roll a 2d6. So, very simple system. Squads have to stay within 8 centimeters of each other. If they do become separated, which I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Look, here's 4 guys, right? They're separated by there's our, well, let me grab a ruler here. Let's take a look, see. Hey, they're all within 8 centimeters of each other. Oh, you know what? That's it. If I was going to say, like, if this guy dies, they're still within 8 centimeters of each other. They have to move. I'm not sure where I was going with that one. So, you probably want to, if you rewatch this, just hit the arrows on the right hand side of the screen. Just fast forward 10 seconds. It'll be fine. You can see the glimmers of 40K in this. And we've done the thing where we started off with a skirmish game. Said, yeah, but what if I wanted to throw that many squads instead of 5 guys? I want 5 squads. How can we streamline the process? And it is interesting. I'll also point this out before we close out. Although this is a squad-based game, everything is by figure. And so I would posit that it's probably easier when you play this game. All right, this squad is going to fire. Let's just roll for these 5 guys. In modern day 40K, it's buckets of dice, right? I could just roll for every guy because it's 1d6. In Imperial Commander, if I got a squad of 8 guys, I got to roll 2d6 8 times. But I should be targeting the same number every time. So the question then becomes, well, do I need to fire with 1 guy and then roll for the impact and then declare for my second? And there's not a lot of conversation about that in here. They, on the one hand, well, I guess they forgot. On the other hand, I guess they think you're not stupid and you can figure out what system works best for you. I don't know. I'll probably try it both ways in my first game. Do I roll for this guy and then roll for impact and then shoot this guy and roll for impact? I don't think so. I think instead I would just say, look, I got 8 guys. I'm going to roll 8 times and see how many hits I got. And this is probably where the next step of evolution comes from. Okay, I got 8 hits on your guys. Now remember, because it's squad based, all of your guys have the same armor. So it's the same check. So I can just say, okay, bing, bang, boom. I got 5 hits. I'm going to roll 5 dice. We'll see what those 5 effects are. And then you apply them to your squad. And we come up with a simple rule. Defender picks which guys take the hit. Your commander is going to be the last guy to die. That's fine. He got to be a commander by surviving on a battlefield. He's always going to be the last guy hit. Give up your mooks first. Keep your leaders alive. If you've only got 5 guys in your squad and I kill 4 of them, that leader's not doing a whole lot on his own anyway. So it doesn't really make that big of a difference. Yeah, just let the defender decide. At least that's how I think it's going to work. Until I get it on the table, we don't know for sure, do we? Until we do get this on the table. I'm praying for you.